All right, so like Jess said, this is AMS Basics for first or second year users of the the Green Star system. If you have any questions, interrupt me. We'll get them answered. Either me, Colton, Monica, she can speak, Jeff or Brett. We'll try and get an answer for you right then and there. So going through the agenda, starting out, setting up a home page, the different layouts that you can do, the different things you can stick in that layout. So when you flip through your home screens, that's what you see. Calibrating the TCM, basic setup for harvesting, the diagnostics page, knowing where to go for that, and that way you can see what's wrong with your, or why it's not painting or something like that. And then the new bundle and the new updates that we have coming out for the Green Star 3 and Starfire 3000. So we start going through, to get to set up the home page, click the main menu in the bottom right corner, and then we go to the layout manager here, the color box here. And then once you click on that, you got different layouts that you can do. Whether you want to do full screen, I know a lot of guys use that one there, G, like I got set up. But then you can do page 1 all the way to page 5. And then what you do to put something on there is click on the red spot there, and then you can click from what information source you want it. So whether you want totals, whether you want guidance, whatever you want, you click on that and it'll bring you through 20-some pages in one area and maybe 5 in another, of just clicking through what you all want in that layout manager. So here you got an example of it, guidance up top, totals in the bottom, and then client, farm, and field. And then when you're done with that page, and if you want that page to show up in your home screen, you got to make sure you check mark that box there. If you don't, it won't show up. And then you can keep going through, like I said, you can do page 2, page 3, all the way up to 5 pages. And for every one that you want to show up, just remember to check mark that. And then press accept there in the bottom, and they'll start showing up in your home screen down here when you click on that. So that's setting up the home page through the layout manager. Calibrating the TCM, this is one of the first things that is going to need to be done before you go into the field. So you don't have any problems with that. This is the screen, this is off the command center. Sometimes it'll be on the GS3 depending on what you have for a machine. It'll be the fixed axle, so here for the combine it'll be the front wheels, okay? So you need a level surface, you can't do it on a hill or it won't calibrate properly. And then a fixed position outside the vehicle so you know exactly where to line it up. Okay, so you get in there, you line it up with the fixed axle with a fixed position, press calibrate, turn the vehicle around, which you do have to do now with the new update that's coming. You have to turn it around. You just can't press calibrate twice without turning around. So you turn around, line it up again with that fixed position that you had outside the vehicle, and then you calibrate it again. If you do not calibrate the TCM or it's improper, if you're on a slope or something, and you're mapping, you're going to see skips in the field, and you're also going to see overlaps as well, as demonstrated here. Now we go on the basic setup for harvest. Before you do that, you got to have accurate measurements, and we'll get going into that later on with the machine and the implement. But getting good measurements, not just calling up and saying, hey, what's a good measurement for this, and I'll just use that. You're gonna take the time, get out, actually measure what the distances are. Okay, so once again, basics of it, get to the setup page. Main menu, bottom right, you got to press GS3. Now, pressing GS3 once might not get you where you want to go, okay? So it remembers the page that you were on last time you were here. Okay, so you press GS3, all of a sudden it's on equipment. Well, you're going to have to press GS3 again to get to the setup page. Okay, so you press GS3 again, and then here you are on the setup page. Now, depending on the operation you have, depending on which ones you click here, in this case for harvest, we're going to click on documentation, which automatically checks mark those 3 above for you. Go ahead and press accept there at the bottom, and it will bring you through the whole setup, everything that you need. Okay, so go through client, farm, field, enter that stuff in. One thing that a lot of people will miss and will get a lot of calls on is people won't put in the task here. Okay, they'll leave it as documentation off. In order for the page to paint for you to start recording, you got to have a task in here. Harvest. If you don't click that on, it won't work. So here we got client, farm, field, task for harvest, crop season, operator. You can put that in if you want. And then if you have boundaries loaded into your monitor, you can also click on field locator. That box right there, just put a check mark there, and it will, like it says, locate your field if you have boundaries loaded into your display. Go ahead and click the next button, and it'll bring you to your equipment. Okay, it's already know that's hooked up to a combine, so you put machine model, machine name in there, and then you want to change the offsets. Okay, right here you notice we got 0 inches in for all our measurements. Okay, so you click on change offsets, and it'll bring you to this screen here, A, B, C, D. Okay, here it shows you exactly, in here, kind of what each measurement is. A is typically 0 because your receiver is in the dead center of your machine. And then here's kind of more, I don't know, hands-on, but it's an actual picture. But B measurement is from non-steering axle to what your receiver is. C from non-steering axle to the connection point of your implement. And then D is the vertical distance of the GPS receiver. So make sure you take the time to get out there, measure that. And then if you click on your next page, it'll bring you to your equipment, your implement. Okay, so row crop head, implement model, implement name, you got to enter that stuff in. But then if you notice down here, you got a physical width of 30 feet, okay? Well, once again, it all depends on whether you got an 8-row head, 12-row head. Okay, here we got implement width is 8 rows, okay? So that's not going to be 30 feet if you got a 30-inch corn head, okay? So that's going to be, you got to change that to 20 feet. Your track spacing needs to be changed to 8 rows on 30 inches, okay? In order to do that, you go through and change your widths there. Okay, click on that button, and it, once again, you got the same thing. Click on it, enter in, and accept it on your different inputs there. Okay, you see there we got that all changed to 20 feet for your implement. Track spacing is 8 rows on 30 inch. Okay. Once again, here you got the change offsets for your implement. Okay. So change offsets A through D again. A is connection point to rear of implement. That measurement is almost going to be non-existent since the rear of the implement is the connection point. Once again, and also C as well, is a lot of times will be non-existent depending on what you have, is where the receiver and the center of the implement will line up. Okay, but most of your heads are all centered. Jeff mentioned that there were a couple of them that were actually off-center a little bit. So you enter them in. B is from the distance from the front to rear of implement, and then D is from distance from connection point of implement to the steering control point. So like if you had row feelers or row sense on your combine head, they're going to be up here a little bit farther. Okay, so that's what it's going to be steering off of. So the measurement will be from the connection point to where the row sensors feel the stops. And then fourth page is your documentation. Make sure that you have a harvest here for your operation. And then in order also for you to be able to document, you got to have crop type, brand, and variety in there. That's a must. If you don't have it in there, it's not going to document. Okay? So in order to do that, you go into change harvest settings and you enter all that in. Okay? Then you press accept, since you got all 4 pages done, and then it'll ask you to press accept again just to make sure you are finished. So, Now Colton's gonna go through the rest of it.
So that was kind of some basic setup. I'm going to kind of talk more about when problems occur. When you guys call in or something, Jeff and I, and Sam and Monica, this is the first place we're going to go. Ask you to go is the diagnostics page. So say you call in, it's not painting. We're probably going to end up going your main menu, then GS3, and then the picture of the book with the red. Once you click on that, there'll be a drop-down menu. And if we're talking you through it, we'll probably tell you which one to click on, but just say it's not painting. So you guys would go in, you would select recording, and then once you select that, this page will come up. So as Sam talked back there, where harvest, and to select harvest. Now if you didn't select harvest, where it says harvest there, that would say no. So we're going to kind of run through here, and most of the time on the phone we'll ask you, this is what says no. So this is just kind of a heads up for you guys. Kind of remember this is where we're probably going to tell you guys to go, and this kind of gives us an idea of what's going on problem-wise. Some important points to remember: if you guys are going in to change something and the box is grayed out, won't let you change. You got to remember everything pretty much has to be off. A lot of times we're going to call, hey, I can't change this. It's because the head's not up. The head has to be all the way up, so your recording source is off in order to change settings in GS3. And here we're talking, found your header height, where we're going to set where your head shuts off recording, and we're going to show that here. So here's in the command center, and this will be on 70 series and newer combines. 60 series and older would be in the brown box. So here you would click on picture of the combine, and then you would actually go to soft key I, picture of the head. From there, record height. So you guys can set where you want your head to shut off recording. So if you say, okay, right here's where I think I'm never going to combine higher than this, you put the head there, you select that soft key D, and it'll set the height right there. So as soon as that head gets to that height, that's where it'll shut off recording. Of course, your beam platform is going to be probably quite a bit lower than your corn head. And some guys keep it up all the way so it doesn't shut off till you raise all the way up. Here's kind of how we go through it in the 60 series and older in the brown box. So you would, right here is soft key F, record height, same thing, hit save when you get where you want it. Here we're going to go through moisture correction in the brown box, soft key A. So you guys are, say, testing your moisture and it's consistently off, a half a point. This is where you can come in and you can manually enter 0.5 in, and that would raise your moisture in the combine so that it matches what you guys are getting calibrating wise. You can also go negative here. You put a negative in front of there. You can go down. Here's in the setup, just kind of show the same thing. That's where you'd actually change it at.
Maybe touch on if it's a half point, you would change it from where it's at currently.
Yes. If it's a half a point from where you're at currently, you would change. So say you're a half a point higher from 0.8, you wouldn't put in 0.5. You would actually add to that. It'd be 0.13 or 1.3. Or 1.3, yeah, 1.3. So you'd add on to where you're from. That's one guys get into too. Well, they'll erase the number that's in there and put the new number, and you can go backwards there. Here's calibration for yield. This is one we wanted to point out, especially for this year and last year also, being some spots that possibly burned up. So your mode here is standard. So we want you to calibrate one in the standard, or however you're going to calibrate. And then also we're going to switch this, the toggle switch here, to low flow and run it half speed of what you're going to probably be combining and get a yield calibration there, just so we can kind of fine tune the calibration for when we go through some of those side hills that might have got burned up and got to have a lower yield. If you just kept it in standard, you wouldn't be near as accurate when you go through those spots as far as yield monitoring. We kind of threw this up here. This is one, guys call in and say, hey, my head is in the middle of my combine, I can't figure out what's going on. When Sam was talking about putting your measurements in for your implement, this is where this would come in. So if you would happen to miss and not put measurements in for your implement, this is what would happen on your screen.
Hey, Cole,
Yep.
can you back up to that previous screen?
Yep.
Where it says calibration factor. Is that a standard figure?
That's not a standard figure. That is your calibration factor, which is you take your, it's the,
Most of the time, that 650 is where it starts out from the factory, but then after you, when you calibrate it, adjusts from there.
so this is where you would enter in your actual calibration factor. So you would take your, is it your display weight divided by your scale weight times your old calibration factor. That gives you your new calibration factor. And that's entered here. So this is where you actually, this is like when I was talking correction for moisture. This is your correction for yield here.
But there's a couple different ways you can do that. I mean, you can either go to that page there and press that start, letter C by the start, and it automatically clears the weight and starts counting weight as you go through the field. And the more you can get on that calibration load, the closer you're going to be to getting an actual number. When you get a drain tank full, or when you get a truckload, then you'll press stop, and it's going to save that. It's going to save the weight that it recorded, and you can run that truck to town and run it across the scales. When you get an actual weight, you'll press letter E, and you'll enter in the actual pounds that the scale ticket showed, and it'll automatically change that calibration factor for you. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. Either that, or like Hope said, you write down your starting weight, write down your ending weight, and then when you get you can do the math and change it that way.
Is one way better than the other?
You're gonna come up with the same thing. I mean, the monitor will figure it for you, or you can figure it. Either way, it's just, the big thing is press the start and stop, and then, like I say, you can continue harvesting until you get the weight back. But either way, the end result's gonna be the same.
Does it go back and readjust? You go in and open up the field, you make your lands, you dump in the wagon, and the truck shows up.
No, so it's gonna, the way the John Deere monitors work, you pick 20 acres and then you start the calibration process. It's gonna say, okay, everything that I've done to this point was correct and accurate. So then you're gonna recalibrate, and it's from there forward will be the new yield. So, which is kind of nice, because if we start out picking 25% moisture corn here this fall, that first half of corn harvest will be calibrated for the higher moisture corn. And then when we get done cutting beans and we run and switch back to corn, all of a sudden we're running 16, 17% corn. You're going to want to recalibrate, because it's going to hit that impact plate on top of your clean grain elevator differently. You're going to want to recalibrate, but you don't want to change the first half of the corn harvest. So it is nice in that sense, but the key is you need to calibrate pretty quickly off the bat. Otherwise you'll have, your first field or whatever might not be accurate. Now, that's not saying you can't do a post calibration once we load the harvest information into the computer.
So we need to do the same thing on low flow and standard
You just need to do the low flow once. I mean, you might run 3 or 4 calibration loads in the standard, and then switch over, do one low flow, and that'll be good. Now,
for all year.
Well, you might want to do it when you go to dry corn at the end. You might want to do another low flow, but you only need to do one load for that.
When you talk about doing 2 or 3, all you're saying is to get within 3%.
Yeah, I mean,
The more you do, does not make it any better.
well, you'll get to a point after maybe the second or whatever that, if you do 3 or 4, you might get to the point where you're actually bouncing back and forth one way or the other from the second calibration. And at that point, you're just kind of splitting hairs. And, the other thing is, we can over-calibrate. If we're calibrating every field or every variety, we can get to where we're over-calibrating and we'll actually be further off than what we would have been.
So this next slide here is for selecting your background when it's painting. Your foreground is going to be what you see as it's painting. So this would be a drop-down menu here. You can select coverage, harvest. If you're running variety locator, you could pull in your background, which this morning we played with, and it would bring in some of the yield force custom management zones to talk about. But here's the big one. If you guys are painting and you just don't want to see the blue, you can switch that to yield. You can switch it to moisture, and that's what while the combine's running and painting, that's what you would see on your mapping. Here's just the drop down here, so you guys can see that. A lot of times when we're planting, you guys would run like coverage only had paints the blue, but you would select yield, it would actually paint what your printout map of yield would look like. That's what the painted map would look like on your screen. Here's just a slide. We're going to show that shows how you would clear coverage. This would only be for if something went wrong, or maybe you set down the head or something and wanted to start over before you actually started. A lot of guys don't clear the coverage map once you've already started running, just because you'll lose what coverage you already do have. But just kind of showing guys that, and this would prompt you if you hit accept, then there's another screen that comes up that asks you if you're sure you want to delete coverage. So, display updates. So we have a new bundle out. This would be for GS3 to 3000.
Back to that clear the map thing. Say you're just messing around with your combine, calibrating heads and things like that, and you've got the head down and you're not really in the field, but it accidentally starts mapping. I realize how to clear the map coverage, but how do you clear those acres that has accumulated on there from just playing around?
You read on this one?
That would be, I guess normally what I would suggest would be to, for your client farm field, put in a test farm and a test field, just so you don't have an actual field that's in your hierarchy that we would run risk of.
So there's no way to erase that?
No, you can clear the coverage, but, and then you can erase it on the computer.
You can't do it through the display?
No, it'll show as, it'll keep a running total the whole rest of the season with those points.
So back to the updates. Auto track, universal 200, and then rate controllers, both the regular and the dry. So if you have any combination of any of these, we're going to want to update them. So say you're running a GS2, but you're running a rate controller using the GS2, we'd still have to download software for the GS2, even though it's not updated to GS2, and that software is embedded for the rate controller in that. So, like I said, if you guys are running a GS2 with the Starfire 3000, we're still going to have to update the GS2, and it'll update the Starfire 3000 through the bundle. So basically, if you have any one of these, we're gonna need an update, no matter your combination.
When did those come out?
They're out now.
But like if they would have had it updated in July.
It came out in the middle of August.
Okay.
Middle of August.
Okay.
So we threw a couple slides in here on yield force. This is a new program we have here at STI. It's been around about 3 years. And the mission statement is utilizing available technologies to provide agronomic decision support to help our grower customers fully utilize their technology, enable machines to maximize the return on investments in their farming operations. And what we're doing with this, guys, is we're writing variable rate prescriptions, seeding and fertilizer. We're doing data analysis where we're taking stuff down from more of a a grower to a farm, but we're actually going down to field, and then areas in field we're building management zones. Sam, Monica, and I, and Brett kind of leading that program. Here's just kind of some of the offerings that we have with Yield Force. Your agronomic consultation with advisor, precision farming support. We clean all your data, and then print all your maps and everything. Create the management zones. Here's your variable rate. Some limited crops guided in the data analysis. We just kind of wanted to throw this up there to let you know that we are doing this now, and if you have any questions afterwards, talk to one of us. And we'd like to thank you, and then questions if you guys have any.
All those other things are available for seller support.
Correct. Yep.
Golden.
Yep.
So what's your options if you don't have a predetermined acreage for a field and you're just accumulating acres as you harvest and you're ending up at the end of the field and you say you got a 30-foot platform and you got 10 foot you're taking. That's going to screw up your yield tremendously, so you have to just go back in and change your cut width when you do that every time, or should it know that, hey, I've combined over here and I've combined over here, there's only 10 foot left?
That's pretty much, that's pretty much the only way to do it if you don't have a boundary on it.
So,
We had it there, you gotta change
Somewhere in here,
the. Yeah, it's back on the.
right here. This is one place you can do it. I mean, you can set it up on one of your home pages, whatever, but right down there in the bottom, it's got overlap control. If you put a check mark in there, this particular head, it's got it broke down every 2 rows. So if you've picked the end rows off and you got some point rows to finish up on, it's actually going to, excuse you, as you come out of the feed, or as you come into your end rows, the first 2 rows, when they hit the end rows, it's going to shut it off and just record 6 rows, and then 4 rows, and then so it will be.
How about like on a beam platform?
Same way. It usually breaks it up into 5-foot sections
Okay, so it does.
or 6,
shut-
you know, whatever. But it
It
will,
does shut your head down.
Yeah.
Okay.
if you've got the overlap control checked.
Okay.
And depending on how you set it up, I mean, it might be on your home page, or you can go into the equipment tab in your header.
Which that's a lot closer than saying, okay, I'm taking 30 foot, only taking 5.
Right.
You know, at least it's shutting it down that much.
Right.
Okay.
But that's gonna be another reason to do your low flow calibration, where if you're not taking a full head width, it'll be a lot more accurate when you get to that point.
Okay.
So, here, sorry. You guys got any other questions?
Do you calibrate the yield on the new monitor like the old brown box?
S series?
Yes.
No, that'll be different. That'll actually be, that'll be done through the command center. And you'll have to run 4 separate calibrations for that. We need at least 4,000 pounds per load, and we're gonna run it at different speeds. So we might run the first one at 2 miles an hour, run the second one at 3, the third one at 4, and the fourth one at 5, or, you know, however you wanna split that up, but you'll run four different calibration loads. And then, that'll give us a quick calibration, and then there'll be an option for you to go in and run a complete calibration. And that's how you'll get your number. Now, you can run 5 or 6, but you've got to run at least 4. You've got to have at least 4,000 pounds, and like I say, more is going to be better. But the other thing's going to be, if you're running let's say a 2-year-old S series, there's going to be calibration loads in there from last year that you're going to want to go in and make sure you erase or uncheck, so that when we're doing our calibrations from this year, we're not throwing these 4 in from last year plus the 4 from this year.
I think they're gonna go over that,
Yeah, they're gonna touch more on that,
In the combine one right after this.
in the combine one, but that's how you'll. Yeah,
The updates, do you have to go to Stellar Support, or can we get those through Apex?
no, you gotta go through Stellar Support. The Apex update, that's the other thing. You know, if you're running Apex, they just came out with 3.5. So you wanna make sure that you've got the latest update on the Apex as well.